Imagine walking home after a long day, when suddenly, a stranger not only insults you but slaps you across the face in front of a crowd. Most people would freeze, but this young woman didn't. What happened next shocked everyone, left a racist man flat on the ground, and turned her into an unexpected hero. This is Naomi's story, one you don't want to miss. Get out of my way, you don't belong here. The voice exploded through the air, sharp and filled with venom. Heads turned instantly, the chatter of the bustling downtown street silenced in a single breath. A tall white man in his 40s stormed forward, his face red with anger, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. People instinctively stepped back, creating space as his fury seemed to demand attention. But his eyes were locked on one person, Naomi Carter. Naomi, a 21-year-old college student, was on her usual route home after finishing her evening shift at a local bookstore. She carried her backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, minding her own business. She had always been proud of her independence, juggling work, studies, and still finding time to volunteer at her community center. Nothing about her that night was unusual. She was simply walking, like dozens of others on that street. The man's shoulder collided hard into hers. Naomi staggered back, confused. At first, she thought it was just a random bump in the crowd, things like that happen in busy city streets all the time. She opened her mouth to say, "Sorry, excuse me," even though she wasn't at fault. But before she could get a word out, the man stopped, turned on his heels, and glared at her with eyes full of disdain. "You people are always in the way," he hissed, his voice loud enough for nearby strangers to hear. Naomi froze. For a split second, she wondered if she had misheard him. But before she could respond, the man's hand lashed out. Smack! The sound was sharp, echoing against the surrounding buildings. Naomi's head whipped to the side, her cheek stinging from the sudden blow. She stumbled a step back, her backpack sliding halfway off her shoulder. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman covered her mouth in horror. A man holding a coffee cup froze mid-sip. Several others instinctively pulled out their phones, hitting record without even thinking. In a world where everything lived online, no one wanted to miss what was about to unfold. Naomi touched her cheek, her fingers trembling. It wasn't just the pain that stunned her, it was the audacity. She had done nothing. Said nothing. And yet, this stranger had slapped her in broad daylight as if she were beneath him. The man sneered down at her, his chest puffed out like he had won some sort of victory. "That's what you get for not knowing your place," he growled, his words dripping with arrogance. But Naomi wasn't the type to crumble. Her heart raced in her chest, thumping so hard it echoed in her ears. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, watching to see how she would respond. She thought of her late father, who had always told her, "Naomi, never let anyone treat you like you're less than who you are. Stand tall. Always." She straightened her posture, her backpack finally sliding fully to the ground. Her brown eyes locked onto his, unflinching. Though fear coursed through her veins, something else burned brighter, defiance. "Is this what makes you feel powerful?" she asked, her voice carrying louder than she expected. "Hitting a woman? Hitting a stranger who did nothing to you?" The crowd murmured. A few people nodded. Others whispered. Some even shouted words of support, "Yeah, leave her alone, and you can't do that, man." But the man only laughed, a cruel, hollow laugh. He looked around at the bystanders recording him, as if daring them to stop him. Then he leaned forward, his voice cold. "You should know your place. People like you never learn." The tension thickened in the air. Naomi's cheek still throbbed, but she stood tall, refusing to step back. Around her, the world seemed to hold its breath. Everyone knew something was about to happen. And no one expected what Naomi did next. The slap still burned across Naomi's cheek, but her spirit burned hotter. The man's smug grin told her he thought he had already won, that he expected her to cower, to shrink away like so many others he might have intimidated before. But Naomi wasn't built that way. She had been raised in a family that believed in strength, not just physical strength, but the strength of dignity and self-worth. Her mother had always told her, "Naomi, the world won't always be fair to you. But you have to decide, will you let it break you, or will you stand taller than it?" And her late father, a former boxing trainer, had made sure she grew up knowing how to protect herself. He had enrolled her in martial arts classes when she was just a teenager. For 3 years, Naomi had trained in discipline, balance, and defense. She never imagined she would need those lessons in the middle of a crowded city street, but tonight, life had thrown her into the ring without warning. Naomi looked the man straight in the eye. Her voice rang out clear, carrying over the murmurs of the growing crowd. "Is this what makes you feel powerful? Hitting women in public?" Her words sliced through the tension like a blade. The man's grin faltered, if only for a moment. He wasn't expecting her to talk back, not after the humiliation he had just dealt her. "You people," he spat, his face twisting with contempt. "Always talking, always playing the victim. You should know your place." The crowd stirred uneasily. Some gasped at his open hatred. Others exchanged looks of disgust. Several held their phones higher, making sure every word was captured. The streetlights reflected off dozens of camera lenses now pointed directly at him. But Naomi didn't flinch. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. She wasn't just standing up for herself in that moment, she was standing for every woman who had ever been told to stay silent, every black person who had ever been told to know their place. "Let me tell you something," Naomi said firmly. "My place is wherever I choose to stand. And tonight, it's right here, facing you." The crowd erupted in a ripple of support, cheers, claps, even whistles of encouragement. A teenager shouted, "You go, girl," while another woman's voice rang out, "Don't let him push you around." The man's face turned crimson. The more people rallied behind Naomi, the smaller he began to feel. He puffed out his chest, trying to look intimidating, but Naomi's calm composure only made his anger look desperate. "You think you're tough?" he barked. "You think you can stand against me?" Naomi's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "No," she replied evenly. "I don't think I can. I know I can." The words hit harder than any punch. The crowd roared with approval, their voices echoing off the walls of nearby shops. The man's hands trembled, not with fear, but with boiling rage. He stepped forward, raising his hand again as if to strike her once more. The crowd gasped, phones shaking as they tried to capture every second. But this time, Naomi was ready. Her stance shifted, subtle but powerful. Her knees bent slightly, her balance rooted to the ground. Her arms moved into position, not in aggression, but in preparation. Anyone trained in martial arts could see it, she wasn't about to attack recklessly. She was prepared to defend herself. The man snarled, "I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget." But Naomi's voice cut through him like thunder, "The only one learning a lesson tonight is you." The crowd cheered even louder, the energy now completely in her favor. People were no longer just bystanders, they were witnesses to something bigger. This wasn't just a confrontation between two strangers. It was a battle between hate and dignity, between arrogance and courage. And Naomi had already won the crowd. Everyone waited with bated breath, their cameras rolling, their eyes glued to the pair in the center of the street. The man thought he was about to crush her spirit. But Naomi knew, deep in her bones, that the real fight was only just beginning. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation. Dozens of people had formed a circle around Naomi and the raging man, their phones raised like glowing torches. Everyone knew a clash was coming, it was only a matter of time. The man's face twisted with fury. He lunged forward, trying to shove Naomi down like she was nothing. His movements were wild, sloppy, fueled by anger rather than skill. He expected her to crumble under his force, to fall back and surrender. But Naomi wasn't like the others he might have bullied before. She shifted to the side at the last second, her steps light, her body controlled. Instead of stumbling, she used his momentum against him. His shoulder shot past where she had been standing, and he staggered forward, nearly tripping. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted, "Did you see that?" Naomi raised her hands defensively, her stance strong but measured. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her training took over. Every lesson her father and her martial arts instructor had drilled into her echoed in her mind: stay calm. Stay balanced. Don't strike first, but don't hesitate to protect yourself. You picked the wrong woman today, Naomi said firmly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. The man growled like a cornered animal, humiliated by the laughter now spreading through the crowd. You think you're clever? You're nothing, he spat. With a roar, he swung his fist at her face. Naomi ducked just in time. The fist whooshed past her ear, missing by inches. Without thinking, she grabbed his wrist and twisted sharply, the move quick and precise. The man cried out in pain, his knees buckling as the crowd cheered wildly. Yes! Get him, someone shouted. The man struggled, trying to yank his arm free, but Naomi held firm just long enough to show him she wasn't afraid. Then she released him, stepping back into her stance. She didn't want to attack him ruthlessly, she only wanted to stop him. But humiliation burned hotter than reason. His eyes darted around, catching the dozens of phones recording his every move. He wasn't just losing a fight, he was being exposed. You'll regret this, he barked, charging at her again. This time, Naomi was ready. As he lunged, she sidestepped and swept her leg low across his ankles. The man's balance gave way, and he crashed to the pavement with a heavy thud. Gasps erupted, followed by cheers and applause. The man scrambled on the ground, his palms scraped, his pride shattered. He tried to stand, but Naomi stepped back into position, her eyes locked on him. She didn't advance, didn't hit him while he was down. Instead, she stood tall, calm, steady, untouchable. The crowd roared even louder. Their cheers weren't just for her martial arts skills, they were for her strength, her dignity, the way she had turned the tables without stooping to his level. You're finished, someone yelled from the back. Leave her alone. But the man wasn't done yet. Red-faced and desperate, he forced himself back up. He lunged one more time, swinging wildly, his anger blinding him. Naomi ducked low, pivoted, and delivered a clean defensive block to his chest. The impact pushed him backward, and once again, he stumbled to the ground, this time harder, breathless and humiliated. The crowd exploded, clapping, cheering, chanting Naomi's name. Some even started booing the man, their voices growing louder as he flailed helplessly. For the first time, Naomi saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of her fists, but fear of exposure. Fear of being remembered forever, not as a powerful man, but as the coward who tried to hit a woman and got destroyed in front of everyone. Breathing heavily but still in control, Naomi looked down at him and said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You wanted to teach me a lesson. Now the whole world is teaching you one. Phones zoomed in. The crowd roared. The man lay there, red-faced and defeated. And for Naomi, the fight wasn't just about defense anymore, it had become a statement, one that everyone watching would never forget. The man lay sprawled on the ground, his breath ragged, his pride shattered. His face was red with both anger and humiliation, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. The crowd surrounding them had turned against him completely. Phones were everywhere, capturing his every stumble, every failed attempt to assert dominance. He had walked into this street thinking he was powerful, untouchable. Now, with dozens of strangers booing him and cheering for Naomi, he looked smaller than ever. But his rage still burned. I'm not done, he shouted, his voice trembling. He scrambled to his feet, his movements sloppy and desperate. You think this is funny? You think you can embarrass me? Naomi didn't even flinch. She had her hands raised, calm and steady, her breathing controlled. The sting in her cheek was still there, but her spirit was stronger than it had ever been. She shook her head slowly, her voice sharp enough for everyone to hear. You embarrassed yourself. I just stood my ground. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and chanting Naomi's name. The man's face twisted with frustration. He lunged one last time, his arms swinging wildly, but Naomi had already anticipated it. With a swift movement, she sidestepped, pivoted, and swept her leg low once more. His feet left the ground, and he crashed onto the pavement harder than before. This time, he didn't bounce up quickly. He groaned, clutching his side, the fight drained from him. The cheers grew louder, echoing through the street. Strangers shouted things like, "Justice served. She's amazing. That's what you get." The man struggled to rise, but Naomi simply stepped back, standing tall over him. She didn't hit him again. She didn't need to. Her silence, her composure, her strength, they spoke louder than any punch could. And then came the flashing red and blue lights. 2 police cars pulled up, sirens cutting through the noise of the crowd. Officers rushed out, their eyes scanning the chaotic scene. The moment they saw the group of people recording, all pointing toward the man on the ground, the story became clear. Witnesses immediately stepped forward. "He hit her first. She defended herself. I've got the whole thing on video." The officers didn't hesitate. They handcuffed the man as he shouted excuses. "She started it. She attacked me. I was defending myself." But his words fell flat. The truth was already on dozens of screens, recorded from every angle. One of the officers turned to Naomi, his tone respectful. "Ma'am, you handled yourself better than most people could. You stayed in control." The crowd cheered again, louder than ever. Naomi didn't smile, but she lifted her chin high, her eyes steady. She wasn't just standing tall for herself, she was standing tall for everyone watching, everyone who had ever been told to back down. The tables had turned. The man who thought he could silence her now sat in handcuffs, exposed before the entire city. And Naomi, the woman he had tried to break, walked away stronger than ever. By the next morning, Naomi's life had changed forever. The videos of the incident had spread like wildfire across social media. What began as shaky cell phone recordings from strangers quickly turned into breaking news segments on television. Headlines screamed across the internet. "Racist man attacks black woman, instantly regrets it." Naomi Carter, the student who fought back and inspired thousands. Clips of Naomi's calm but powerful words, "My place is wherever I choose to stand," were replayed over and over. People online praised her composure, her courage, and her refusal to be intimidated. Naomi wasn't just trending, she had become a symbol. Comment sections overflowed with support. "She's my hero. This woman just taught us all how to stand tall. She didn't just defend herself, she defended all of us." For days, reporters tried to reach Naomi, but she remained humble. She didn't see herself as a hero. In her mind, she had simply done what anyone should do when faced with hate, stand up against it. But the truth was, not everyone could have done what Naomi did. She had faced danger head-on and turned a moment of pain into a moment of empowerment. Weeks later, Naomi was invited to speak at her university. The auditorium was packed, not just with students, but with community leaders, professors, and local residents who had followed her story. Standing at the podium, Naomi looked out at the sea of faces. She wasn't nervous. She felt ready. "When I was attacked that night," she began, her voice steady, "I realized something important. Hate doesn't just try to hurt you physically, it tries to make you feel small, to make you believe you're less than who you really are. But we don't have to accept that. We don't have to stay silent. We can fight back, not just with our fists, but with our courage." The audience listened intently, some nodding, some wiping away tears. She continued, "I didn't fight that man because I wanted to. I fought because I had to. And I didn't win because I was stronger or faster, I won because I refused to let hate decide my worth. That's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life." The room erupted in applause, a standing ovation that seemed to shake the walls. Naomi smiled then, not because she felt proud of herself, but because she knew her father's words were true, stand tall, always. The man who had tried to humiliate her was now facing charges, his reputation ruined. Meanwhile, Naomi had become a voice of hope and strength for countless people who saw themselves in her story. Her message spread far beyond her city. It became a reminder to anyone watching, you are not powerless. You have a voice. And no matter what the world throws at you, never let hate win. Naomi hadn't just fought back that night. She had lit a spark that would continue to inspire for years to come. And that night, Naomi proved something powerful, that hate may strike first, but courage always strikes back harder. Her story is a reminder to all of us, stand tall, speak out, and never let anyone decide your worth. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more powerful stories like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay strong.